All right, we're kicking off a 7 round mock draft for the Philadelphia Eagles here. Why am I doing this? Well, I have a lot of friends who are Eagles fans, and I think it's a lot of fun to go back and forth with them in terms of what we think Philadelphia will do in this draft class. Uh, but immediately, I was going to run this through scenarios where you have to take Peter Skronsky at times, going to run through that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter because Christian Gonzalez and Jalen Carter are both here. And I think immediately, if those two players are available, either one of them is preferential to Bijan Robinson or Peter Skronsky. There's a world in which neither of those guys are there, and it's Bijan Robinson, Peter Skronsky, Justin Smith-Njigba, Broderick Jones are your like top options at this spot. Deontay Banks, but unfortunately for Philadelphia, that didn't happen in the simulation. Jalen Carter and Christian Gonzalez are on the board. I think this is a sprint the card moment for Jalen Carter. I don't think Carter falls outside the top five, frankly. I just don't see it happening. Uh, but who knows? Crazier things have happened. There are some stuff off the field with Carter. I'm sure teams have had to evaluate. I'm sure they've evaluated it all differently. But if Carter is available at 10, I think this is an easy pick for Philadelphia. All right, pick 31. Bijan's still on the board. He's not going to be on the board this late in the actual draft. And you know how I approach this stuff. I try to keep things as realistic as possible in my mock drafts. Bijan's not going to be on the board, so we're going to have to go a different route here. Just looking through everything else, Cam Smith jumps off the board a little bit. Anton Harrison would be like a nice long play, but I don't think we're really going to need to go there. Osiris Torrance would be a nice play. Just to add depth. I know Philadelphia fans are probably screaming not to do that. They don't necessarily need the depth. Right now, they have one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in the NFL, even though they have some older players, specifically at right tackle and at center. And they're projecting to start Cam Jurgens at guard, a position he's never played in college in his life. And in this past year, obviously, he didn't have a ton of playing time. So I don't know what you do with that necessarily. I don't pay enough attention to the team to necessarily figure that out on the fly. But we're going to take a wide receiver corner here just because it's always good value. So looking at the best available players of this group, I like Cam Smith the most. I think he's going to be the pick. All right. Pick 63. Let's see the big board. Jahmyr Gibbs, again, a player who I don't think is going to be on the board this late. So we're not going to take him. Looking through everything else, someone like BJ Ojulari would be really nice depth for Philadelphia. That's an edge rusher, a little bit undersized. But hey, you have Hassan Reddick on your team and you've seen what he can do. I think Ojulari can be a similar player. Got really nice long arms, a lot of pass rush moves. For some reason, I feel like the league is not as high on him as maybe I am. But I think this is a player who is really talented, really gifted. And I think he would be a great addition to the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, back to the top 100, pick 95. Let's see what we have on the board. A bunch of these guys I don't believe are going to be on the board, so I'm just not going to take them. Uh, Specifically, all four of these linebackers. Maybe Toto is here, but I don't think Henley's here. Campbell and Simpson probably aren't going to be here, so we're not going to take those players. Looking at what else is left on the board at this point, let's try some wide receiver help. Michael Wilson is a really intriguing player, but he's got some medical concerns. Nathaniel Dell is an interesting slot option. I don't like him as a top 100 pick, though. A guy who I do think would be very interesting is Jonathan Mingo, who's got somewhat of a similar profile to an AJ Brown type player. I don't know if you want to stack two guys on top of each other, stack similar players like that, but I think Tyler Scott actually from Cincinnati, your speedster, your vertical threat, a slot option, a really talented player. I think he's going to be an option here for Philadelphia at 95. So I'm going to put a little bit of a pin in that and just look around briefly before coming back to that. Let's see. Yeah, this is offensive line looks pretty picked over at this point. And I would consider it offensive line depth, but it looks really rough right now. So we're not going to go that route. Maybe backup tight end could be in consideration here. Maybe running back for depth. Izzy Abanikanda certainly has the speed to qualify as a player you might want to go after at this point. But I think I'm going to take Tyler Scott instead. And we jump very far forward to the 7th round. Let me just pull up the full catalog of Eagles picks here so you can see them right now. We got two more selections. Where do we go? We're pretty deep into it. So let's see. There's a bunch of guys here who are really good values for the 7th round who are not going to be available at this point. So again, I will not pick them if I feel very comfortably that they're not going to be available at this point. The Eagles have a bunch of tight ends on the roster. I would love to add another tight end here. I know they already roster a bunch of them, so I think that's probably not going to be necessary. Looking through everything else, I mean, this is going to be really picked over. We're at the very back end of this draft. Mohamed Ibrahim's interesting because he's more of a power back. He's more of a short yardage guy. He's fairly densely built. Not a big back, but just a densely built player. Had some injury history. He's been in college football for a long time, so he might be a UDFA. Chris Rodriguez is actually a player who's probably a plus size version of Ibrahim with a little bit more juice, I guess you could say, and maybe a little bit more. Well, definitely a lot shorter injury history. So I'm going to potentially look at him to give you maybe a bit more well-rounded backfield. If you're Philadelphia, I'm going to look at that. And yeah, again, the offensive line is just picked over at this point. So is the defensive line. So we're going to take Chris Rodriguez from Kentucky here. And one final selection left. This is going to be a corner wide receiver. At this point, the best shot you have hitting on a player is almost always corner and wide receiver this late in the draft. Corners kind of picked over. What about wide receiver? What about tight end actually in this year's class? Tight end, Josh Wally's not going to be here, so I won't pick him. Daniel Barker is pretty good, but I don't know if he's going to get here. Matt Landers is a pretty athletic receiver from Arkansas. He's just kind of underachieved up to this point in his career. So it'll be interesting to see if he can develop into a meaningful player in the NFL. But I think taking him here, it's a high upside player. It gives you a shot to maybe hit on something in a 2 or 3 year developmental window. Matt Landers is the pick. And we'll view the results here so we get to see who the players we chose for Philadelphia. Looking at the user picks, Jalen Carter at 10. I'm sure Philadelphia fans love that. I think, honestly, if you get Jalen Carter, most Eagles fans will not even talk to you for the rest of the draft. They'll just be happy for that one pick alone. That's all you need to do. But add Kim Smith at 31, who I actually liked almost as good, if not more, than Joey Porter Jr. when I evaluated their tapes. BG Ojulari at 63, who to me is like a borderline first-round player. So getting him at 63 is a total bargain. Tyler Scott at 95 overall, it's appropriate value for the type of player Tyler Scott is. He's a late third-round pick, in my opinion. You get him at 95, absolute burner. Great option out of the slot. Then 7th round, Chris Rodriguez. Again, just adds another player to your running back depth chart. It gives you a little something different than what some of the guys you have on the roster already. Different than Rashad Penny. Different than a Boston Scott. And different than a Kenny Gainwell. And then you get Matt Landers again, who's just a bit of a long shot developmental pick at wide receiver from Arkansas. But if he hits, he's going to be a really solid contributor for you. He's a pretty good athlete. He's got some traits that are attractive. So I think this is a pretty well-rounded class for Philadelphia. And again, getting Jalen Carter at 10th overall, I mean, that kind of just that buys you so much wiggle room if you were looking to please Philadelphia Eagles fans. So I think that really, really solidified this draft class when we were getting into it at the very top.